Hey, Katrin, good to see you again.
Hey, Kitty. It's Coaching Couch podcast time again.
It's episode 2,
It's episode 3, actually. We have a lost episode 2,
the last one, yeah.
the
So
last
this
one.
is the official, unofficial number 3.
Exactly. And this is an experiment today because we have not prepared anything. At least I haven't. We just have a topic. And we'll see how that goes.
I did prepare our topic since it was about the goal setting. Um, and just the other day, somebody in the Slack channel asked a question about OKRs, which is goal setting, one of the tools that I use. So my mind wandered off in there as well, and I thought, hey, we're going to talk about goal setting anyway. Let's jot some things down. So I am prepared and also willing to throw it overboard.
All right. So let's get started. What's your first note?
Um, my first note, actually, I'm checking it now, looking at the screen. Is it, personally, I'm a result-driven person, so therefore, goal setting and measuring progress to me is stimulating because it helps me out to focus and making some sort of a plan, just like a rough sketch. Nothing very etched out, but I need something to move on.
Something like a vision in the end to know where you're going? Is that what you mean by
Yeah, it can
result
be a
driven?
rough vision.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Usually, for my own business, I sort of have a rough path because I'm not exactly sure where I'm going as a business, where I'm going on projects. I do know it's much clearer, but it's also more to the front, so that makes sense. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so some rough idea out there, which give me a path, and also to say no to things that are
That
not
don't
on
fit.
that way. Yeah,
Yeah, that's an important point. I was
yeah,
wondering, you say you did call yourself results driven,
yeah.
in that you have a result that you work towards, but then also you make a plan and you measure progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So isn't that process oriented, or what would be like the opposite of you when it comes to goal setting?
The opposite of me is
Yeah.
somebody, I think, being just in a moment and maybe taking in the process which is there at hand, and or the people, and just go with the flow. I like to go with the flow myself as well, but if I don't know where we're going, then I think, okay, something's clearly missing for me. Uh, I want a rough sketch.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
if not, it feels like I'm just, if you're swimming, just like keeping your head above the water, and it's fine. It's comfortable at times, but you're not going somewhere, and I need to go
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah. I understand that. I was gonna say, isn't that the lack of a goal, like the just being in the moment, but that in itself can be a goal for someone to just say,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to run after the next carrot. I
Yeah,
just want to experience the here and now. And that is it's
absolutely.
a difficult goal actually to achieve. It's much easier to focus on something. Yeah, goals is something that I don't remember if we talked about it, but I've talked about it a lot in the last year, because of the mental training that I used to teach,
Mm-hmm.
and I tried to help people to find a good way of setting goals, because I find a lot of people are result driven, especially in sports, but they're not really good at setting goals. Like the thing you mentioned, you have the goal that you want to work towards,
Mm-hmm.
but then the steps towards the goal, they're often missing, or I find people have a hard time to formulate like the goals on the way there. And I think that's a key thing in OKRs as well, if I understood that correctly.
Yeah. I think it's because of the strategy. I mean, you can have a goal which is a year or two, or maybe even farther out there, or 3 months, for that matter. But if you're not sure how you're going to get there, I mean, there are some things you have to take into account, and you have to balance out, and to think about while you're making the journey. And it's at least for me, and I've seen also some of my customers, it's not enough just to have a vision. You have to have a strategy, which gives you sort of the boundaries, how to reach your goal. And to be able to tag people along and say, hey, this is where we're going. We are here now, but we want to be there. Will you join us on our journey?
What
I think we talked about it at Coach Camp Germany in one of the guys.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I would call myself result oriented too, like driven by something that I want to achieve, by some vision. But then I've been very successful in making myself miserable getting there. So
did you know how you did that?
Yeah, I'm good at planning. So I had a bunch of ideas of what I thought I wanted to have or what I wanted to achieve. And I made a plan how to get there. And I followed the plan and everything worked out fine. I got what I was working towards and I was miserable. I didn't, and in sports, that is something I see in my clients, actually. In sports, I don't have it, funnily enough, and it's something that I talk to my clients about. Imagine someone who runs a marathon. That takes a lot of training to train for a marathon and to run a marathon. And the actual finishing of the marathon and a moment where you realize, oh, I reached my goal of running this distance in this and that time is, I would say, 1 minute if you're very generous, crossing the finishing line and seeing that you actually reach your goal. And
I think actually, may I interrupt you for just a
I'd
brief
like to
moment?
finish my point and then you can interrupt me.
Sure.
Comparing that 1 minute where you actually cross the finish line and take in the emotion of, wow, I actually made it, comparing that to the amount of time that you spend training for it and getting there and not being there yet, and it's actually not a lot. And so what I find is important is that to find joy in the process. And I see too many people who don't have fun training. They don't enjoy the process, but they want to reach the goal. And as I said, I'm guilty as charged. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I was thinking when you were talking about the marathon and the time that people want to reach, because usually they want it for a certain limit or something. And to me, that's not the goal. It could be like in OKRs, you have the objective, why I want to do whatever it is I want to do, the real goal, and then you measure your key results. So in the outline of the strategy, what are they? And I think
the way there.
Yeah, and I think okay, staying in a limit or my projected time will be, I don't know, 10 minutes faster than the last time or than my last training. I think it's typically key results and not the objective. The objective not to run a marathon unless maybe you're not a marathon runner, but you're a recreational runner and once in a lifetime you would want to go for your bucket list and run a marathon. It could be something else, but it's not the marathon itself that you want to run.
That's the important question. You said it. You said the question is why. The question behind the objective is why.
Absolutely.
And I hear, I mean, especially with marathons, and I'm sticking with sport here for a minute. I have too many clients, I want to say, especially with long distance disciplines such as marathon or triathlon. They only have the key result, the time that they want to run or the race they want to finish. And when I ask the question, why do you want to do that? It's so expensive. It costs a lot of time. It's exhausting. Why do you want that? I've had clients who basically walked out of the session and never came back. And I mean, I know why, because the person I have in mind now, she was doing it to get social recognition from others.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get so many people applaud you and like, oh my God, you ran a marathon, and oh, you're so good. And among runners, they compare times. Oh wow, you ran this and this fast. And it's just the social recognition. And that's the point that I made earlier, is that recognition you get is like eating chocolate. It's like 10 seconds where you get a high,
Mm-hmm.
and you want more of that. It's like a like on Facebook. And then you go back to being miserable because you still got to do your 2-hour training, which in the case she didn't like doing,
Mm-hmm.
because she lacked the why. And I guess that asking the question why is something like the central point when it comes to setting goals, no?
Yes. Well, yes, I find that it's true. And it's one of the most difficult ones to answer, especially when you have your key results cut out for you. Then it's very hard to go to the objective. Sometimes the key results are very hard to define because you have a clear objective, but you have no clue how you're going to reach that. And you think, oh, it's too fuzzy or whatever. But that's okay. That's one of, I find the nice thing in the process of carving that out, to really know what you're gonna do, why you're gonna do it, and how roughly you're gonna get there, by yourself or with the help of others.
Yeah,
But it's hard. It's hard to think about it. But I think it's one of the key points, to be successful in reaching your goal, is to have a hard think about it. And it's not something that you can do in 15 minutes. No way.
no. I also think that especially if we're talking about goals, not just for yourself, but for other people, like in a team or an organization, it's not just to know why, but to buy into the why.
Mm-hmm.
So the organization's why should also be your why. Like if the organization says, well, we want to make loads of money, why would you as an employee care?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I often see like things drifting apart, when the organization has a why or the team has a why, but it's not aligned with the people who are actually part of the organization or the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
And I
that's
think,
really hard to find.
yeah, and I think if an organization has the why of we want to make shitloads of money, uh, that's a problem in itself.
Well,
Because
it's a fair objective to have. It would
no,
be fine,
I think
but
it's not a like a key objective for an organization. I think it's one of the things to keep yourself alive, is to make money, because otherwise your reason of existence as a company is gone. Same as me being self-employed. You know, I like doing the projects that I do, which means I can say no to others. But if I have nothing, I will say yes, because I also need money to survive.
absolutely. And I mean, I don't want to judge that. If someone wants to get rich quick so they can buy themselves an island somewhere in the Caribbean and spend the rest of their life there, not having to work, then the objective is to make a lot of money as fast as possible. And that is,
Well, then
yeah,
the objective is to have to live on an island, and not have to work anymore. And one of the key results is have X amount of money to be able to do that.
yeah, if you frame it that way, it will probably be very hard to convince your employees then to help you make so much money that you, owner of the company, can finally go. Maybe they'll work extra hard so you will leave earlier if
Earlier, yeah.
you're horrible enough of a boss.
I think that would be a nice experiment for some. Yeah.
I don't know, but that's exactly the point where I see people going wrong with goal setting. Is that I like to describe it as a 3-tier goals in 3 tiers.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have objectives and key results, and I like to have 3 of them. So the objective is also my first, is what I call the result. The result in sports is like, I want to win a gold medal. I want to make the national team. I want to, I don't know, something that you can measure.
Mm-hmm.
And that usually has to do with other people. You're a judge or a coach that selects you, or other people who might be better than you, your opponents, or people also wanting to make the team. They have an impact on the result. And so it's fine to have that as a vision, to say, I want to win a gold medal at the Olympics, or I want to make this and that team. That's fine, but it's not entirely in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, if you're judging yourself by, have I reached that goal, you're not being fair to yourself, because you have no control over what other people are doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Except if you like do unfair things to your opponents. But you don't know what your what other companies are doing, who comes up with the next super duper invention tomorrow. You don't know. So those goals, I don't like them that much. I like them as visions to, you know, to motivate people to dream about, but they're not good as goals. And then the second tier is what maybe the first tier, like the result goals, I would call those what you call objectives. Maybe like I want to win an Olympic medal because something. It was a dream since I was a little kid or something. And then a second tier, it takes away the impact of other people. So if, say, you want to run 100 meters in under 10 seconds, that's pretty fast. Say you want to run 100 meters in under 12 seconds. That's maybe achievable. If you ran 100 meters in 12 seconds, you still probably would come in last at a world championship. But nobody can keep you from reaching that goal. It's a key, you probably would call that a key result. Is that something you can measure, something that you can work towards, but no one else, not your competition, not a coach, no one has an impact or keeps you from reaching that goal. And then a third is something that you can actually do, an actionable goal. Because if you say, I want to run 100 meters in under 12 seconds, cool. How are you going to get there? No idea. And you need to get down to, okay, in order to reach that, what do I actually want to do? Today, in this training, in this meeting, what is needed today so that I will reach this goal? And as I insist on these goals to be actionable. Like, you could tell me to do that and I would know what to do. Too many people have goals that are too fuzzy, like we need to stay aggressive, or yeah, everybody needs to really work on this feature now. Like, okay, how do I do that? And I think that's a big danger, that maybe because those goals sound so simple, such as I will do 50 push-ups today, and tomorrow I will do 51. Day after that, I will do 51, and so on. Sounds really simple. But you need actionable items like that to actually be able to take action. Because your brain doesn't know what to do if you just tell it, yeah, you need to train hard. It's like, yeah, how does one do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like for the example of the 50 push-ups every day, that would be one of the actions. Other than that, you'll have to take care of diet or whatever it is. There's more things to being fit and in shape in order to be able to run that fast.
Yeah. And in organizations, I think that's the same mistake is made often.
Yes, definitely. In the workshops that I do when I implement OKRs at companies, it's usually actions that they write instead of key results, and key results that they write instead of objectives. Mm-hmm. So the objective is always qualitative and not quantitative, as least as possible. And then for For the quantitative things, you go to key results. And there are sometimes you have the key result. Is it a key result or is it an action? Is it something that I just do? Does it make the impact? I don't know yet. But we need to start doing this and able to make an impact. But it's usually just one of the factors. And sometimes also in business, it doesn't really matter if you do it Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, as long as you do it iteratively. And sometimes they're depending on each other, the actions, that they follow some sort of a sequence, and sometimes not. And if the push-ups didn't work, try something else which keeps you in a fit condition and your muscles in good shape. And that's when it's actions and not key results.
Yes. What pops to mind now is that in workshops or retrospectives, the simple things, the really simple things, like whatever, we need to talk to each other more. Those are often things that I get comments on, such as, yeah, but we know that we have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have to write this down? And
it depends
the answer
why
to
they're
that
not
is,
doing it.
well, are you doing it at the moment? And the answer to that is nope. Well, then we need to do something to do that simple thing. Yeah. And I think that's one of the very difficult things. That's what I meant earlier with the actionable item that is so simple that everybody thinks, yeah, we know that we need to do that. That people don't dare, I'm going to say, setting it as a goal. Like setting as a goal, as a team, for example, we want to talk to each other more. People often think that it's too simple. It sounds.
Well, it doesn't have to be hocus pocus. Sometimes it can be very simple.
Yes,
but hard to achieve anyway.
Yes, that's what I mean. It sounds so simple that people think it's mm-hmm. like not big enough of a goal. It's not big enough mm-hmm. of an action item, but it's really where your whole path to reaching your goal starts to fall apart, because it's the little things. It's mm-hmm. the very little things, such as communication, such as how do we talk to each other, such as being on time in meetings, whatever it is, where it all starts to fall apart. And mm-hmm. not enough people set those tiny little goals that sound so simple as actual goals and track them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also find that like a question that gets asked a lot when doing OKRs or when starting to implement OKRs. Okay, and how is this intertwined with personal development plans or whatever, like the yearly performance reviews or whatever? Because you can say, oh, we have organizational goals, we have team goals, and then we have individual goals. And how does an individual contribute to the team goals, and how does the team contribute to the organizational goals?
So how do you coach that?
I tell them not to work it into the assessments or the yearly annual thing, because it's ridiculous. Because if you do that, if you go for a performance review combined with personal OKRs, then somebody's never gonna go out of their comfort zone, because they have to reach a certain target, and able to get a bonus or I don't know, a good review or whatever. So they won't try, they won't learn so much, and that is what you want to do. Yeah, and that is what you want to do with the personal ones. I think is to experiment. Okay, I want to change something for the better. I don't know if I be able to yet, but I'm gonna try. And also the yearly reviews. I mean, especially with the OKRs, which is short sequenced. Yeah, it kind of clashes with the rhythm of the annual review anyway.
So what do you suggest people do with annual reviews? I mean, somehow people have to be evaluated for promotions, or whether they get to stay with the company?
Yeah, I always challenge if that is really necessary, because I think it's how we did it in the old days, and it was fine then, but it's different now. We're a knowledge economy now. In the information age, it's different than when we were in manufacturing, for instance. But if you do, then see if you can make the stretching part of, okay, how does somebody deal with personal growth? How many experiments have they tried? Work that in the annual review then as well, but not on the results. If the experiments have, I don't know, whatever impact on the revenue or something. But what did it take to learn, or how much did you learn, or how can we tell that you've learned a great deal?
Yeah.
If you broadened your horizon, but sometimes it's not fair, to have that for everybody, because speaking for myself, I'm more of a sunshine person and light person than the dark. So now that in this time of the year things are getting darker, it's harder for me to be as joyful as I would be in spring or in summer. So getting out of my comfort zone when I'm feeling well is much more easy than when okay, but not going out on a limb. And in the annual reviews, or when you go through a divorce or a rough time, or you've been sick for a long time, then stretching is not good. It's not safe for you as a person. So stretching by itself is not always okay. And I think people have to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, if you continuously stretch,
yes.
Taking the image of a rubber band, at some point it's just gonna break.
Yeah, it's gonna snap.
And it's the same that happens with people. So it needs to be a wave sort of thing.
Yes.
Stretch, and then also get used to the new position, I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
And then at some point go into the stretching again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, spot on.
Also, what you mentioned with rough times that someone might have privately, it needs a very safe environment for people to be able to share that, and for people to take this into account. There might be environments where people don't want to talk about their hardships or things that happen in their private life that make it hard for them to perform. Maybe because they just don't want to drag this into the workplace, or because it's actually not a safe environment where they work to do that.
Yeah.
And then it's very hard, because your performance still suffers by being judged. Sort of, we assume you're fine. Why were you struggling? Yeah, I don't know. So that's very hard. I think really evaluating someone fairly, it takes a lot of trust to be able to do that. And trust is a whole topic in itself that has so many aspects.
Sure.
and symptoms that it causes when it's not there.
Yeah, absolutely. We could talk about that another time.
Trust? Oh yeah, about 50 times maybe.
Yeah.
So what else is on your list?
Oh geez, do you think I have a whole from A to Z plan? Which I don't. Just some thoughts.
Sure.
Oh yeah, for instance, one of the things how I use them as well is with customers. I try to formulate OKRs to why they hire me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What kinds of answers do you get to that question?
No, but not that explicit. But okay, why is it? I mean, the why they want to hire me, that is put on the table, and it usually starts out pretty vague.
For example?
Yeah, because we have this change, or we want this organizational change, and our people have to deal with the new reality. You know, it's that
Why?
fake. And I say, okay, right, I could do that.
Ask 5 times
I have
why.
no idea. So, but it's the interesting part. If people vaguely know why it is that I'm being brought in, and sometimes I like it pretty fake. But if it's just because I don't know, Peter told me to hire you, then I think, okay, if you don't know why we're sitting together on the same table,
It's not,
uh, that's not a good thing.
no, it's
So
not. It's not a useful use of my time and your money. So let's
yeah,
just do it.
yeah. So, but that's one of the things uh, which for me is quite nice actually, to see on what level have the people thought about hiring somebody for the job, and spending what you're saying is spending their money to be able to make an impact. And it's also for me, because if I know that it's pretty vague, but I have a good sense about it, then I can work with them to carve that out. And I know that I'll have lots of freedom to be able to get that more clear. But also it's a challenge if I don't talk about it. So okay, I think I know what you want, and you think you know what you want. Um, if you're never going to talk about it anymore, then you're sure you're misaligned together.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was curious. Do you when you start with a new client, do you start out talking to them pretty much straightforward about, look, I coach OKRs, so let's talk about our OKRs?
No,
Or do you talk about, you just ask them why you hire me, and then
why? I talk about why a lot.
are
Yeah.
people confused when you ask that?
I ask about the why. I ask about vision and strategy. I don't like to talk about tactics. If people go into tactics, I think I'm not talking either to the right person at that moment, or that the job is not for me. Because when we talk tactics, I feel, to start out with, I mean, I feel that I'm too bound to do what I want to do or need to do.
Yeah, and maybe used as a sock puppet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but if we talk strategy or vision, and that could be clear or could be unclear, that's where I know we're gonna kick it off.
So for
But I don't say, okay, I teach OKRs or I implement OKRs. No, it depends on what lingo that the other party is talking. Because a lot of business people, they know what KPIs are, and they confuse them with OKRs.
yeah, that's common.
That's very common. And I'm not a and or. I mean, I'm not a or person. I'm an and person on this. I think it's very useful to do OKRs and KPIs, key performance indicators, and objectives and key results at the same time. They can go hand in hand. For me, the KPIs, I know we talked about this in the Germany session. The KPIs are like your blood pressure and your heart rate and your saturation.
Yeah, you
For
know
me,
how the system is doing.
yeah,
And you
uh,
can, is a key performance indicator should give you a good idea of whether you are improving the system or not.
yeah,
And why should you not measure that?
yeah,
The challenge is to find good ones.
yeah. But I think that's the OKRs, at least to me, they're very useful to drive change. So KPIs is okay. I want a certain stability between this and this range, but I want to change. I don't know, whatever department or some new product line or whatever it is. And therefore, we need to do stuff that we've never done before, but we need to measure if we're going on the right track there. And if we're not, we have to pull the plug on the project. which is very sane.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
usually that doesn't happen. So I think OKRs are very useful for that as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you for yourself set something like OKRs when you start with a new client? Like, okay, me myself, I am satisfied with the job that I'm doing here if this and that happens, or do you like have your own vision and then set key results? Okay, I want to reach this and that goal with this and that client for yourself.
I try to set the objective the same as my clients. And then depending on how large the company is or how large the project that I'm on is compared to the overall change. If it's the whole change, I try to make the OKRs for it. And either I take them along with it or I just do it for myself.
Mm.
And it's usually not focused on my contribution because my contribution is in the actions.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were saying with the marathon, with I want to make the nationals or whatever, or win a gold medal. You know, you're also dependent on other people, especially in change projects.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do lots of things and have people not move or
That's easy.
move the opposite direction. I mean, yeah, what kind of an impact are you making there? It's not always under my control. It's usually not under my control, but I can stimulate and I can help them drive in the same direction as long as they also know where we're going. And therefore the goal is so important, the objective.
That might even be the biggest part of the job, to get everybody on board.
That's the nicest part.
Yes, but
It's the hardest and the
it's hard,
nicest.
and it's a large part. Like if you were to draw like a cake diagram of the a pie diagram of time you're spending at the client, a lot of time is spent just talking to people, just having a coffee with the right person and talking to them, building a relationship, listening to them, understand where they're coming from, and try to get them on board in a way that they want to get on board.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, maybe what people don't see. They you know, sometimes I get asked, what is it that you do? And they're like, I just drink coffee with people, talk to a lot of people. And then I spend a lot of time for myself reflecting, just, you know, sitting in a coffee shop somewhere. And I usually write a lot when I do that, just writing down my thoughts to find out what I think. And that's, I think it's underestimated because the other things are sort of easy. You know, they're something you can learn. That
are
someone
more tangible.
Yeah, like you run a workshop or you run a retrospective. That, yeah, you can teach people how to do that. But the building relationships and getting a feeling for what is actually going on beneath the surface, and how do I go about this? How do I talk to which person so that we can find a way to getting where we need to be? That is so fuzzy, and I would have a hard time teaching that to anyone.
Yeah,
it's a lot of intuition and a lot of reflecting about things.
Yeah, it's funny, like you say, things are beneath the surface. That triggered my vision of the iceberg, and there is so much under the water, much more so than above the water.
I hate that image because it's so overused, but it's
but
what
in
I mean.
This case, I think it's exactly that, because the workshops and the things that are more tangible, which you can plan the meeting, and I have the meeting with X and Y. That's the tip of the iceberg, and the rest is underneath the surface. And it's
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 also what
nice,
we
I
can
think,
talk
also.
about. That the things that are above the surface
Mm-hmm.
are things that everybody can see and therefore everybody can talk about. And the things beneath the surface, sometimes you can see them, sometimes even everybody can see them, but it's sometimes the things that you can't talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's more challenging at least. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the question is, how can I use the stuff that's above the surface to help the things that are beneath the surface to move?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like the goals that I set for myself. And for example, the current client that I have, it's a bit of a challenge because it's not just the team. I'm hired as a Scrum Master there, but what I do for the most part is I work with the organization around the team to find good roles and responsibilities
Mm-hmm.
so that the team actually has a chance of being more productive. And I'm there 2 days a week, so I have to. I'm not going to say make a compromise, but prioritize
Mm-hmm.
where am I going to work first. Am I going to talk to people in the organization? Am I going to talk to the team about how they can improve their internal process? Am I going to talk to individual people on whatever, how they write their stories? What do I do? And that's, for me, an important process to sit down and think about, okay, if I'm responsible for improving the process, for helping to improve the process of this team, what are my goals?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I prioritize them? And then to say, okay, why? Because I want to help them. That is something that other people, in every step, I need other people's help. But then to come down to actionable items. And usually, like, as I said, I do this often sitting in a coffee shop, writing. And there's so much thought and everything is so complex. And in the end, what I come up with is I need to go have a one-on-one with Jane and talk about this and that. And that's my first step to solving this huge, huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I
so
find that when I don't do that, when I think I don't have the time to sit down and write for an hour or two to come to that conclusion, I'm often confused and I don't quite know what I'm doing, and I feel insecure whether I'm doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a retrospective for myself, if you will.
Yeah.
Just reflection for myself. Am I on the right path? Am I doing the right things? And then working from that towards actionable items for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, it's setting goals is also a small thing and something that I do for myself to keep myself going in the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And are you deliberately, like when you're working for the customer, are you deliberate on how much did you do into the organizational level, the team level, on yourself and, I don't know, maybe other individuals? Like that you balance them out?
Yes. Am I deliberate? I would say I'm more intuitive about it than deliberate. I try to prioritize one thing because I feel that if you're starting to, I'm going to say, to loosen too many screws, then nothing is stable anymore. And you have no idea what the right position for anything is because there's so much moving everywhere. So pretty much like in a scientific experiment, you try to change one thing and try to see
one
what
variable.
Yeah. And of course there's interactions between things that you need to take into account, but take small steps and be very aware of what you are changing and where, and give the system time to find a new balance with the new situation, and give people time to get used to the new situation and the new things that we agreed on, which takes a lot of patience.
Yeah.
from my part and also from their part.
Yeah.
The things like, oh, but now we've had that workshop and nothing has changed. I'm like, that was last week. What do you expect?
It's so recognizable. Yeah.
But it's also for myself, when I think about, now I've been with this team, whatever, half a year or 3 months or whatever it is, and then think like, okay, so what has changed in that time?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'm like, am I having an impact? But it does take time. And I do ask a lot of feedback from my clients to make sure that they are feeling they're getting value for the money they pay at the end of the day. But it does take patience to let that happen in a system that's that big. I mean, you mentioned before, it's a question of the size of the organization. And the organization I'm currently working at is, I think, about 30,000 people in total.
Mm-hmm. So just a cog in the machine.
I'm sorry?
On which it's just a cog in the machine where you can make the impact on.
Yes, and I'm a tiny little part, and there's so many moving parts around me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That it's more difficult to change than if you're working, with a growing startup that's maybe 30 people or 100 people, where you have a chance of even knowing everybody. And it makes a difference in what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many people can you get into a room? Is everybody going to be around? The workshops that I run, I just do them with whoever's there, because someone will always be on vacation or not be able to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And in smaller organizations, you have a chance of actually getting everybody in a room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
sometimes, most of the times it's good to have everybody in the same room, but sometimes it's also fair enough to take like whoever is there are the right people. And if you have 80% or at least over 60 or 65%, it's good enough.
Yeah, or I mean, if you let the entire group delegate some of the work to 2 or 3 people, I'm totally fine with that. They can be very efficient, and then some people that don't participate see the result and they're not satisfied, and that gives them an incentive to collaborate the next time.
Absolutely.
And then, okay, we go and do an extra loop. We do this again, but at least now everybody knows why they're working on solving an issue, why they're contributing, why they're sitting in yet another meeting. Yeah, that's what they say. Oh, it's yet another meeting. No, I don't want it. I don't want more meetings. I'm not going to come.
Yeah.
And they don't like the outcome, and then they know why they're coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. Yep. Good. We could talk on delegation some other time as well. It's actually, quite interesting, and I think a very good topic. The agile community, or whatever it is that it's called these days. Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same for you, but the word that popped to my mind when you mentioned that was trust. I keep coming back to that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't trust, you don't delegate, or you delegate, but then you don't run with what's going. And also setting goals, it takes trust in a sense.
It takes trust, but it also makes trust.
Yes. An organization needs to trust the employees to do things that will in the end contribute to the organization's goal. But the employees also need to trust that the organization does something that helps them to reach their personal goals.
Yeah.
And it needs to be honest. Not just, Ms. Rogers wants to earn 100,000 a year, or she wants to become a senior something or other.
I think I've...
Oops.
Yeah, I've lost you in the...
You lost my train of thought?
No. Your video stalled for, I don't know, 10 to 15
I was still moving. My camera's lying if my video's not moving.
Yeah, but I also couldn't hear the sound anymore, or whatever.
All right.
That's
Yeah.
excellent.
So
I think we're pretty much going towards the end anyway.
yeah, I was going to say the organization needs to support the people's goals from the heart, and not just in with money or promotions, and you know, give them something that they don't need.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's a ping pong table, and here's a here's a senior vice president something title, and here's a bonus, without even asking, is that even what people want? Is that even their goal in life, to reach that, or do they have other goals where the organization could support them in reaching those goals, and that would be better than any bonus that they could have?
For sure. Which reminds me of a book I was reading a couple of months ago, and they were talking about a chief incentive officer, which sounds kind of funny, but actually is quite good, because it depends on the person that you are and the phase of your life that you're into, on exactly what do you need. I mean, do you need more free time, or do you need more money, or do you need more, I don't know what it is.
Guidance.
But it's so much more individual as society is, which also goes for the HR department actually.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that you need to get your focus or get you happy going to work, or whatever it is? It was kind of fun.
And in the end of the day, it makes you work better, makes you be more productive.
Yeah.
So is there a company that has a chief incentive officer, or is that
But
just
I forgot. No, I forgot the company that they were
people
talking
will be
about.
able to Google?
Yes, and I will be able to do that as well. It just sparked my mind
It sounds
on
interesting.
what you said. Yeah,
It sounds interesting.
kind of
Sounds like something fun to do.
Yeah.
Like to go around the company and meet all these people and figure out what is it that they want in life, and how can we as a company help
support that.
and how are we going to profit if they reach that goal?
Yeah.
How does that goal support our goal? Yeah.
It also connects well with the annual reviews that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
The performance review. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Stuff for HR.
So
Cool.
everything is moving closer to HR.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the whole agile thing.
Oh yeah. Now they're
also
also getting attention, and good, because it's
yes, absolutely
necessary. Because
I think HR is underrated in most organizations.
Yes. Go for the H.
Yes, and away from the R.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I think on that note, shall we end the discussion for today on goals?
Yeah, it was nice.
If anyone has any questions or comments, as usual, we're happy if you give us any feedback. Send us an email or a comment, or any way in which you can reach us. You can reach us on social media. I'm on Twitter at Katrin Brecher. And Kitty is on Twitter also. What's your handle?
Of course, Kitty eating, depending on IDING. I'll do it in the subtitles. You can watch for it.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Eating. Not like eating.
Yeah, you can try that handle on Twitter, but it's not gonna work. Maybe gotta be someone else.
Better not.
It's gotta be Kitty eating. Not good.
No. Sometimes I say I'm just kidding, but then it's double D, and it's just a one for me.
Not the point.
Yeah, no.
Put the Twitter handles below, and we're glad to hear from you guys, and we hope you enjoy this podcast.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Katrin. Thanks, people. Bye.